Hi there. How's everybody?
Howdy, how's things going in Kentucky?
Oh, pretty good right now. Sun's shining. It's warm. Feels like spring a little bit.
How's our friends down in the southeast?
Hey, oh man, it was rough. There's a lot of places got hit really hard with flooding and stuff. And the rivers are still, the river is still pretty bad shape. It's still rising. Kentucky River is, even though it hasn't rained in several days. Yeah, it was rough. A lot of the same areas got first hit with the ice storm, which knocked all the power and everything out. And as soon as they got their power back, it just came these torrential rains and places started flooding, and a lot of places lost power again. It was pretty bad.
We got it bad over here.
Montana.
We got it pretty bad over here.
Yeah, yeah. You're in Bath County, aren't you, Emmett? I noticed through there a lot of places look.
Yeah.
We took a bath.
Yeah, you took a bath. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were saying Montana. I think Montana's home got hit. Her hometown got hit really hard, didn't it?
She was stranded up to her folks' place, I think.
Really? Yeah. It was pretty crazy, but right now I just watched the weather a while ago, and they said no rain for at least 7 days, so that's good news. All right, well, let's all take time just check our tuning and get warmed up a little bit here. All right. All right, so I thought, hi Ella, good to see you.
How are all of you guys? Hopefully good and safe and warm, better weather than it has been.
Yeah, we were all just talking about all of the crazy weather that everybody's had to deal with. It's been kind of nuts, but hopefully things are turning around. All right. Well, I thought today we'll review some of the tunes we've been working on, play through all of those a little bit, and then we'll work a little bit more on build a little bit more on some of the theory stuff we worked on last time, and then I thought today's tune will learn Rock Andy. We talked about that last time, and how that's kind of a Cowan Creek favorite, so I thought we'd all learn that one together. Let's see. Last time we did Squirrel Hunters last time. Let's all work through that one together. I'll just play it real slow and we can all play along together. Just gonna start on that E string on the bottom. Scoot over. All right. So actually, so the tune we're going to work on today is in that same key, in that same modal key, where it's an A modal, but we're using the scale for the key of D. So we use a lot of the same notes for the next tune, and but they're different enough where you don't really get them confused, I think. Let's see. Let's practice Mississippi Sawyer next. One thing I want to talk about is starting tunes. I don't know if when you're practicing, if you tend to just kind of jump right into the tune, or if you play those timing licks first, play the taters first. But one of the things to think about is where you can start. So if we look at Mississippi Sawyer as an example, we're in the key of D. So if we start with our third finger on that D note on the A string, and we put our first finger down on the E string in the first position, that's an F sharp note. That is really the third note in a D chord. And on a fiddle, we can't really play a full chord like we could on a guitar or something like that. But that gives us the first and third note of that chord. And if we play those together, that's a pretty good place to start for the key, especially up in that octave, because on the Mississippi Sawyer, our first notes are down here in this higher octave. Another thing you could do in the key of D is that it'd be perfectly okay to start on this D and A string open in the middle, especially if your tune is going to have notes in that lower octave. What you're playing there, being the D and the A, is the first and the fifth note. So to build a chord, you take the first note, the third note, and the fifth note, and that's how you have a major chord. So if you pick two of those on the fiddle and put them together, that's a good, it's a good starting point. And you can also use that to play more than one string and fit that within tunes. And when we play Rock Andy today, we'll add a little bit of harmony that way. So in the key of D, you could either start on those open two middle strings, or you could start on that third finger first string. If you were to be in the key of G, all you do is move that over. You have a G note here on the D string, first finger A string, you have a B note. So you could start there in the key of G, or you could also start on your open G and D. Does that make sense to everybody? It's just picking a place to start that's within the key of the tune. So I know I've always played those in the beginning when we started, but I realized I hadn't really explained what I was doing yet and why I started on those notes. But so for Mississippi Sawyer, I'm going to use that one with the D note here and the first finger here. All right, and I'll just play through it real slow, and everybody play along. So on that tune, if we kind of revisit that one a little bit, we can add a little bit of harmony there by using what's called a double stop, where you're pushing two strings at once in two different places and playing both of those notes together. In this tune, the best place to put that is on the second chord change. It fits really nicely there. So that chord goes to that starts on a D chord, then the second chord is a G chord. So after we play the first phrase, that's all on D. And then when it goes to a G chord, we go back to this note. If you want, you can also put your first finger on the B string up here and play those two notes together. So you can do, sorry. See how that works? So you're adding just a little bit more harmony to that by playing that other string up there. So actually, if you bow both of those bottom strings together during that whole phrase, it really does work, because you're got an extra A note up here over the D chord. So you can bow both of those together. See how that works? Does that make sense to everybody? And these are things that, you know, once you're really comfortable with the melody, once you've practiced enough where you're really comfortable where the melody is, that's something you can do to just add a little bit more to make it sound a little bit fuller, bigger sound. But, you know, focus on the melody first. When you play the fiddle, it's very easy to think in terms of melody and not think so much in terms of chord changes, especially if you're not a guitar player or, you know, play bass or something like that. But it is really helpful if you can start to think in terms of chord changes, because it can help you find harmony notes to add to make your sound bigger and fuller. And we can talk more about that, you know, if any of you that are interested in that, especially I know a lot of you do play guitar and stuff and you're playing other instruments. So if you're learning some of the same songs on all of the instruments, it's really helpful. Then you get that full rounded knowledge of the tune completely. Let's see. I want to make sure we get through Rock Andy, so we might jump into that and go ahead and start breaking that down now. And then if we got time left at the end, we can go back and practice some of the other things. So this tune, I don't know if any of you have we talked a little bit about it last week, is what we're going to do, and I don't know if any of you went and listened to it or anything, but I knew this. Yeah, most people know this tune from Paul David Smith and Snake Chapman, who recorded it together. And Paul was always, you know, very involved in Cowan Creek Mountain Music School, and it's become a really popular tune there, and really popular tune all over. You know, I remember I once traveled out to the West Coast and went to a jam up in Seattle, and when I walked in, they were playing this tune, and it just kind of made me feel like home, you know. And so it's really, really cool. It's in that same modal key. So, you know, the chords for this go from an A to a G chord. So it does a lot of the similar things that the Squirrel Hunters tune did in terms of chord changes. It's all going to start on this bottom string. Let me just play through the whole thing a few times so you get a feel for it. Then we'll break it down. Steven, did you say you're also learning this in banjo class? Have you already tried that one?
Yeah, that was one of the first ones that Montana had us play was Rocking.
Cool. That's great. You got a Moorhead shirt on. I just noticed that. That's cool. That's from the Old Time Festival. Yeah.
I got that down at Cowan Creek School. They had a bunch of them there, and I bought one of them.
Oh, cool. All right. Well, let's break it down in little phrases. So I like to kind of roll into the first few notes. Really, the main note that you're going for is that high A note on the E string there, your third finger. So I like to just kind of roll into it. And then you go back from your pinky all the way third, just roll all the way back. So and you're going to end on your third finger A string, that D note. And do that one more time. All right, and then the next phrase, our main note that we want is this G note, which is our second finger here on the E string. But here is one of those places where you can also put your first finger on the B string to play a double note there. So to play this double stop. So after the first phrase, then the next part is, so that's, if you just use that single note, all right, let me put those two parts together. All right, so that's the first two phrases. The third phrase starts just like the first. All right, and then it ends like this. So we're going to do. So let's open, second finger E string, then come up to the A string, third, first, open. All right, let me play all that real slow. Okay, so that's the whole A part. Is there any parts anybody wants me to go over again? Okay, now let me play the B part through. Let me just play it through a few times so we get it back in our head again. All right. So let me break that down in little phrases. So we're going to start on the open A string, and it's so let me do that again real slow. Sorry, I kind of did that wrong. Let me back that up again. So that's all. So if you're starting on the open A string, it's open. So it's open, open, 2, O, 2, 3. Then come down to the E string. O, 1, O, 2, 3 on that 2 3's back on the A string. Okay, so that's the first phrase. So the next phrase starts with on the D string, and we're going to like roll from our D on that open D string down to our third finger on the D string. So like this. So if you're kind of pulling down with your bow, you're just slurring all those notes together. So just try that little lick right there a little bit until you get that pretty smooth. And you can bow that top string, that top G string along with it if you want to kind of help you be in tune a little better, to be able to hit that third finger where you want it. Okay, so now this part right here, this next part's a little bit tricky. So what we're going to do is, if we think in terms of that double stop we talked about on G, where we have our third finger on the D string and our first finger on the A string. So it looks like this. What we're going to do for this next part is we're just going to rock our bow in between those two notes. So after we do that roll, and then we're going to end on our first finger on the D string. See how that works? If you got those two fingers just there and you're holding them both down, you're really just rocking your bow back and forth between those two notes then. Yeah. And you're, so it's a, if you're trying to write that down in terms of numbers, it's after that roll. So it's 1 O on the A string, 3 3 on the D. And then you repeat that. And the very last note is a 1 on the D string, your first finger D string. So if I try to put all those phrases together right now, we got and then to complete it, the second half starts exactly the same, and then it ends with the same ending we used in the A part. So let me put all that together, just all the B part. Sorry, I got a little lost while I was doing there. All right. Does everybody get the gist of that, kind of? Enough to practice on it? All right, let's put both parts together. Let's play through the whole thing real slow. Everybody's give it a try, and we'll How's everybody feel about that? Anybody got any questions about it? Want to go over any parts? Anything you want to add, Ella?
Nothing that comes to mind immediately other than just like how sentimental I guess this song would be to like all of Cowan Creek, and that there are a bunch of tunes that sound exactly like this in the A part. I think it's not Walnut Gap. It might be Walnut Gap. I don't think it is, but there's some also another Kentucky tune that sounds exactly like this. And while that is kind of confusing, it does kind of help eventually because you can just relate it. Oh, also, when we're talking about that double stop thing that we do on all the strings, which is like the first finger on the higher string and the third finger on the lower string, and how that will make chords. John Harrod, who is another teacher who taught me a lot, he calls it a box. So you'll find that there's this little shape to it, you know. When you see this, it's kind of like these fingers are forming a box on your fiddle. So it's like all of the notes in that little section are going to be within this box of boom, 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 boom on the ones and the threes. So when we go, it's all within this box of. And once you can get the feel of that down, it's pretty applicable to like everything we play.
Yeah, yeah, great. And that's a great way to think of it. If you're able to like, some people, think a lot in terms of shapes like that, and that's, if that's the way you think, that's really helpful. It's people see it in all different ways, but I tend to think in those same ways in patterns and think of it like a box. And sometimes, a note is lowered. One corner of the box may be lower than the other, depending on what key. But once you think in terms of that box, you can adjust your thinking pretty fast then. And in terms of like, it sounded like a lot of other tunes. Yeah, like a lot of tunes in this key especially have that change of going, when you're in this Mixolydian mode, it has that change of going from an A to a G chord, and therefore a lot of tunes in this key have that same change, which sounds very familiar, which is also really helpful, because if you think of all the tunes that you learn and you break it down and think of these little phrases, eventually you'll hear those phrases in another tune and you'll be like, oh yeah, that makes sense, I've played that before. So you'll start to hear that, especially in tunes in the same key. Even Squirrel Hunters has that same change from a A to a G. So, in Rock Andy, it's, and the Squirrel Hunters part is, there it goes there's that G part right there. So it's really helpful if you can understand that relationship of chord changes. In this key, there's a lot of A's and G's. If you were playing in the key of G major, your main chords are going to be G, C, and D. The 1, 4, 5, right? And then if you were in the key of D, it becomes D, G, and A. Still the 1, 4, and 5. So those are the most common chords that you're going to be playing in a lot of music. I mean, there's a lot of old time music just has 2 chords in it, even, maybe a G and a quick D chord at the end of the phrase. So there's a lot of tunes that are that way. But as a fiddler, if you're able to also think of where those chord changes may be, you could throw in some harmony in places and play some of those double stop chords like that. But, it's one of those things, it's like, practice it, and use it as you see fit. Those are all the things that help you develop your own style, is how much you use those things, and good, a lot of fiddlers will do it different every time through. So You know, feel free to kind of experiment within yourself too as you're playing through the tunes. And you know, just keep, you know, I like to just sit and keep playing a tune over and over and over, and think, okay, the next time it comes around, what can I try to throw in there a little bit different and see how it goes, you know. And don't be afraid to mess up, just give it a little try, you know.
And then one other thing to what I was saying about like the repetition and the boxes and the chords and stuff, especially with the finger patterns, you'll find after you learn a lot of tunes that like the ends of tunes pretty much sound the same if they're in the same key, or a lot of tunes will just have the same ending, or they'll have this same like box phrase, like just anything like that. And what I was trying to say is that once you learn enough of those, and again, if you're like in a jam setting and you don't know a tune and you just sit and listen, what you'll realize is that you can take, well, this is just how I think about it in my brain, and so maybe you guys can do it too. But what you can think of is like, okay, this sounds like the first part of the A part of this tune, and I'm going to add the B part of this tune, and it has the same ending as this other tune. So when you have enough in there that are sounding familiar, you can kind of pull from those to join in with a jam, even if you like don't know what song they're playing.
Right, yeah. And you know, I think a good example of that is like when we play Soldier's Joy and we play Mississippi Sawyer. The ending lick to Mississippi Sawyer is a, and then we do the ending lick to Soldier's Joy is, all those notes are right there in that box she's talking about, right? And we all, you know, the goal is that we know that we're in the key of D. We know that we're going to get back to a D note in the end. In most cases, in most tunes, some of them are weird, but in most cases, we're going to get back to that note that we are, whatever key we're in. So as long as you know what key they're in, you start listening for some of those things, and more than likely that phrase is always going to end on a D note like that. So if you know, if you're playing down here and there's a lot of things going on, just know that most of the time, most of the notes that's being played are within that box. So if you're thinking of that pattern, you'll be able to play around and figure out at least some of the notes. And you know, I mean, it's very easy if you haven't played much for you to stand and listen to a jam and think, man, everybody here is like really knows what they're doing. But really, you know, half of the people may not actually know the tune. They just know enough to be able to, you know, play at it. I say, you know, you play at it, you give it a chance to try to play along. And really, in old time music, that's a lot of the goal, is being able to get enough of these little phrases and patterns in your head that you're able to hear something and be able to play along with it, because you kind of are able to predict where you think it's going to go. And the more tunes that you play in certain keys, you'll start to see that. You see those little patterns. And that's what makes people be able to just get together spontaneously and play together. It's like we all know the little pieces of the language to be able to put it all together kind of spontaneously. Because if people were to come from different areas around the country and say, let's play, you know, let's play Soldier's Joy, well, there may be a lot of variations within that tune, and a lot of different ways that people will do it. And but the magic of it is that it doesn't really matter, because everybody is still able to come together and make something that overall sounds cohesive and you know, is something that everybody can contribute to. So, you know, I don't know how much of, you know, you all, well, none of us had experience playing in groups here lately, but I don't know how much of you have, you know, got to go jam and stuff. But, you know, the thing is, don't ever let it be intimidating. Um, you know, there is a little bit of etiquette to it, in that in old time music, a lot of times whoever starts the tune will often be the person who decides when it's over. So whoever starts playing the tune, just kind of watch that person for when they may want to end it. And there's different ways. Some people will give you the look just look around the circle, or some people will put their leg out into the middle of the circle. And usually what that means is somebody kicks their foot out into the middle of the circle, it means play through the whole form of the tune one more time. So both A parts, both B parts, whatever it is, play through that whole thing one more time. And then everybody just kind of is able to end at the same time, then give it kind of a nice ending to it. So just things to be aware of. If it looks like, before long, we'll all be able to crawl out of our holes and go out and see people again. So if you get in some jams, you're kind of wondering what's going on. That's just how it works. And a lot of times in old time jams, they'll pick a key and they'll kind of stay in that key for a while before they switch keys a lot. It's more friendly to banjo players and things who have to play an open tuning, so they don't have to retune all the time. But just know that if you're in a jam situation and somebody has played a tune in a key, and then somebody just immediately starts playing another tune, they may not tell anybody what it is or anything. They just may kick into it. More than likely, they're staying in that same key. You would probably notice if people change keys because all the banjo players would be retuning and everything. So, but don't ever let it be intimidating. Wherever you are, if you look hard enough, there's probably an old time jam somewhere. And to me, I've never really had much of a bad experience. I've never been to an old time jam that wasn't welcoming. So it's the best way. This is great. This is a good way to learn music through Zoom. We can make the best of it. But really, the spirit of all of this lies being around people and making music kind of spontaneous with as many people as you can. But yeah, think in terms of those shapes like that. Think the box is a good way to explain it. And I also think of this shape a lot. You can use that shape on a G chord, and if you move that up, that's actually a C chord. And if you were to move it up again, it becomes an F. Another one where you get harmony is if you're able to push your first finger, if you're able to use that position and push both that string and the one below it together at the same time. Like here you get an A and an E note, which is the first and the fifth. If you move it down here, you get E and B. Then you get a B and an F sharp. So it's really, it's the most, in the keys that we've learned, it's the most handy up here in the key of A. Actually, if you might have noticed, but when I ended Rock Andy, that's how I ended, was on that. So it's just a nice low A to start on. Does anybody have any questions about that? Let's all try to play it all together again one more time before we're done here, and try to play it slow. I tend to really get into it and realize I'm probably just speeding up the more we go along. I'll try to keep it slow and consistent as I can. For this one, I like to start, if I play the taters, I just start on that open A and E string there. So a few things to point out that you can kind of add, just kind of stylistically. Um, there's so one thing you can remember is that your pinky always matches the note of the open string below it. So at the beginning of that B part, the main note that we want is that we're starting on that open A string. If you want and if you're able to, and it's really good to push yourself to be able to use your pinky. You can kind of get by without using it, but it's great to be able to use it as much as you can. But you can play those two notes together by using that pinky there. And I like to kind of slide into it a little bit. So just, it's something you don't have to do, but one of those things that, the more you get comfortable with the tune to kind of push yourself a little bit more. I think it kind of gives a little bit of push at the beginning of that B part that I think's kind of interesting after you're coming right out of the A part, And then the other thing is right at the end of the phrase, that note that we want there is that G note, but what we can do is kind of slide. If we start a little flat of that note and slide towards it, it gives it kind of this little bluesy sound. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah, I like using things like that when you kind of slide around a little bit like that, because it gives you a lot of leeway in terms of being in tune, because you don't have to hit the note exactly perfect, and it just adds, it kind of adds that kind of blues feeling to it that a lot of this music has. All right. Any questions? Anybody want to say anything? Getting near the end of the day here.
I just thought of something, and I know we had talked about this previously, but when I was talking about the box kind of pattern, I started thinking about the G tune "Devil Eat the Groundhog." I don't think you guys have learned that yet, but I have taught that to a couple of my previous classes that I've been a TA for, and it's a pretty simple tune as far as the A part is just box sort of pattern stuff. And as I was plugging through it, I was like, the B part is literally just like a downward scale. So if you guys have interest in learning that, that's one that will be played a lot in Cowan jams, and I would be happy to teach you guys that at some point during the class.
Yeah. Well, we could even try that one next week. That's a great tune. Yeah, and it's another one. It's up there on those lower strings, which we haven't done a whole lot of yet. So that would be kind of nice to play more on the lower strings. But yeah, it does have a lot of great fingerings, and that uses kind of all those notes within that box there that you want. So a lot of great patterns to it, and so just a really another cool tune from Paul David Smith. Yeah, let's do that next week. We'll learn that one. All right. Anybody else got anything they want to say?
My wife signed me up for Aaron Marshall's class.
Oh, cool.
Beginning. She's going to take on the beginning fiddlers.
Nice. Is she just doing that on her own, or is it through a school?
I think it's on her own through her site there.
Okay.
And I don't know if it starts Saturday or the next Saturday, but soon. So I'll be all confused.
Yeah. That's cool. It's been so long since I've seen any of those people, I mean, Eric, the good thing about this music is that you end up knowing people all over the country, and you actually get to see them pretty often if you go to festivals and stuff in the summer, you know. And it was like we all missed that this year, so we didn't get to have our family reunion necessarily. Well, that'll be fun. I'm glad to hear you're doing that. Yeah, there's a lot of good things happening right now. If any, you know, out of all this, I think it has opened up a lot of options to be able to take music lessons and stuff at home. You know, all of us have just become a little bit more comfortable with it now. So, well, all right, guys. Anybody got anything else or any questions? They want to say anything? No. All right. Well, everybody, enjoy the sunshine. If it's shining where you are, it is here. I'm glad it is, and I'll we'll see you all next week.
All right. See y'all. Bye.
Bye.